Hello everybody, welcome in my vlog, which probably some of you already thought, what Aneta is going to talk today about. Yes, I'm going to talk about delicious game changers in regenerative medicine. The title is a little bit more related because first inspiration I had when I read a great article, and this article was by Ulrich, which is, I would give you the full link to this article in the comments. Ulrich Betz. It's a German great innovator. It's a vice president of innovation from Merck, the company which you probably know. It's quite very much global. And I was really impressed by that he released his perspective together with colleagues from very known universities, including Harvard University, but also University of Cambridge, University of Oxford from United Kingdom, and other companies like Bayer, like Genentech, like AstraZeneca, and published this great perspective on game changers in science and technology now and beyond. And today I will talk about, first of all, game changers. As a person which has background in stem cells, did PhD in stem cells, followed by 4 postdocs. Indeed, I wish that stem cells are becoming big game changers, or maybe big is too much to say, but becoming game changers in regenerative medicine, and are improving our life in continuous way. So this review, because it's actually describing many different views, but what is important that this starts from the sentence which I really like in introduction, that each of us is born into a world we do not fully understand. And to be able to understand, we need to learn. We need to learn especially about our body as biologists, as a physicist, biochemists. We need to understand how our body works. But also we need to realize as innovators, as scientists, that we, to answer or to solve global biological problems in regenerative medicine, in tissue regeneration, especially after tissue damage, we need to think as a interdisciplinary biologist or interdisciplinary scientist, which Ulrich is very much nicely bringing. The mind of generalist is truly important here. So that's something about why this interdisciplinary minds of generalists helps us to start to interact with other scientists and create interfaces to collaborate together. So mechanical engineers, MDs, but also physicists, material scientists, you can name it. But that's also what I realized very quickly as a startup, to develop this cross-functional collaborative research and bring this very innovative products to the market in regenerative medicine. But of course, it's also important to bring entrepreneurs, so scientist entrepreneurs, but also investors, which not necessarily are biologists, because they will contribute to make decisions in this very highly uncertain environment, which showed us already COVID, but also war in Ukraine, and still innovation and fundings for developing science and scientific innovations which are brought to the market as a product need to be continuously supported. So sustainability definitely is important for funding, supporting this very R&D research and development in regenerative medicine, to bring these game changers to the market. And about sustainability, I would talk a lot, but I think it's some of the issues of sustainability I will bring, because they are very challenging itself. I think first focus is to generate something which delivered proof of concept and we can scale it up, and then we can think about sustainability and developing sustainable also business models, because business models are important to bring this innovation to the market. So that's something which I like to I think bring from a perspective of Ulrich, and I truly agree with him in many aspects, because the vlog would take really long time. This article is like 33 pages, so I would like to today focus on very delicious, so very particular type of game changers, which I like a lot. That's why they are delicious. But some of them are really truly delicious, so that I will come back to it, and you will find out now during this vlog I'm doing and talking what Aneta really had in mind. So to cover as a short summary topics on different game changers which Ulrich with other co-authors wrote about, are definitely pandemic preparedness, mRNA-based vaccines, single-cell omics, organoids, microbiome, gene editing, cellular therapies. There's many. Organoids, artificial intelligence for drug discovery, AI technology, wearables, digital health tools, empowered healthcare consumer, cultured meat, synthetic biology, 3D printing, sustainability, which I talk about, and carbon capture. And we all believe that these game changers will not just have potential, not just be idea or concept, but will really turn into practical product or innovative therapies or medical devices to already improve our lives step by step, so in continuous improvement. And this is something which I think I'd like to summarize here as you have many type of game changers, but today I talk about game changers in regenerative medicine, my favorite game changers. And first of the game changers I'd like to talk is single cell omics. You could see probably from my PhD thesis, I did PhD in blood stem cells. And what is fascinating about stem cells, we have between 50,000 to 200,000 blood stem cells in adult bone marrow. What is important about blood stem cells is that blood stem cell, compared to other blood stem cell, doesn't act the same in terms of dynamics. Instead of having different type of fate, and importantly, it can give rise to daughter cell, but it also can differentiate two progenitors, which can eventually differentiate toward mature end stage blood cell. And I think what is important about the blood cell, I told you that they don't behave the same way. That's maybe trivial language, but maybe understood for people which don't know so much about cell biology. But indeed, the blood stem cells are very heterogeneous. Each stem cell is different than the other. And that's why single cell omics, in that case, you could think about single blood stem cell omics is very important. And why Aneta is talking about what's so important about single stem cell transcriptomics and genomic data, or multi-omics, because you can combine genomics, transcriptomics with epigenetics, and you could really define more extended profile of each stem cell. Each blood stem cell. And before, we always took basically all different subset of stem cells, and we isolated DNA or RNA, and we perform studies analyzing genome, but also transcriptome. And this also always related to mixed results, because they were coming from mixture of different stem cells. And now this type of methods, especially development, such a high progress in development of methodology for performing single cell omics, allowed us really to even identify cancer stem cells or cancer cells from normal cells in leukemia. And I think that's really fantastic achievement in terms of applying single stem cell omics in disease prognosis. So I still very fascinated by this, and I think more and more examples will show us that this integrated cell transcriptomics and genomic data of AML samples, but other leukemia patient samples, help us to really perform even great diagnostic research, and find which patients with different profile, single omics profile, have better or worse clinical outcome compared to normal patients. So it's a really fascinating field. I'm not going to go too much more in detail, but it gives us a way wider and higher resolution of molecular profile of single cell, single blood stem cells in this case. And why blood stem cells? Because they are the best, the most characterized, and we need blood to survive. That's how simple I could think about. So we need blood stem cells to produce blood in order to survive and deliver all nutrition to our organs. So that's why these blood stem cells are particularly important from my perspective. So the next thing which I'd like to talk about, my sweet game changer in regenerative medicine, which also Ulrich talked about, which I'm really glad that he brought a lot of game changers from regenerative medicine field or regenerative biology. And the other which I like to talk are organoids. Organoids are, probably you heard a lot about media, but mini brains, mini guts. These are actually the cellular 3D cell systems based on cells, which were differentiated from the stem cells, from pluripotent stem cells, from particular tissues, first from guts, then from other organs, including brain. And because of commercial, I think, phenomena, they start to be called mini organs, even they don't completely resemble the native human organs. But they've been shown incredibly developed by Hubrecht Institute under command of Hans Clevers, already, I think, since more than 2000, I think, if I think back, more than 10 years, I think. This is even more than 10 years where first organoid has been created, gut organoid. And Hubrecht Institute decided to actually create biobank of organoids and create all business model around it with licensing and letting other companies exploit this technology commercially in the form of licenses. So that's very important, because the institute, being very academic, developed something fantastically from business-wise perspective as a portfolio which includes over 50 patents in 14 patent classes and encompass all aspects of stem cell organoids, and serve it worldwide and build brand worldwide, organoid brand, but also high quality brand and technology brand in terms of organoids. So organoids has been both taken care of from not just research R&D academic perspective as a product, but being delivered, being tested in many laboratories, being developed and shared technologies built a very global, I would say, expertise in the end on different types of organoids. And it's not just about creating organoids as technology, but also developing these organisms as a game changers, because they can serve now as animal-free systems to test different types of drugs, right? So for drug development platforms, they shown to be really promising and powerful types of systems, 3D culture systems, cellular systems, that's important to say. And of course they don't mimic completely organs because of much more limited complexity of cellular architecture, but cell types, even if you think about the brain organoids. But also they were important because they became very powerful and promising type of animal-free experimental cellular systems to study diseases, to study pathology, to study even what I was really amazed in terms of cancer progression. And I was really truly amazed that they've been not only used for study cystic fibrosis, but also different types of cancer where multiple genes are responsible for the disease genotype. And they've been more and more developed into easily accessible compared to animal models, cellular in vitro systems. Therefore, people start to, or actually companies increase their interest in producing actually organoids and developing organoids as systems for particular diseases, as screening platforms for individual therapies, for drug testing for particular diseases. So also developing platforms, cellular platforms for drug, multi-drug testing. And that broad idea, well, such organoids can be great because they can be also created from one patient from many different organs and basically cover personal medicine challenge and serve for personal medicine approaches. So organoids so far are one of the best game changers, stem cell derived in vitro systems, also important for animal-free innovation, to replace animals and reduce numbers of animals used for R&D, so research development, experimentation, and also basic fundamental research. So I think there's many more we can think about this, these models, but there have been also organisms developed from cancer patient samples. So cancer organoids, and I think that also is a fascinating field, especially from mechanistic and disease development model to study. So that's something about organoids. I don't want to talk too much because I'm always afraid as a biologist I can cross over the amount of information I want to share, and I still want to make sure that we develop sort of interactions between me and you as an audience, which is able to understand it also from interdisciplinary perspective, because that's very important for me, that I'm not just talking as biologist to biologists, but I'm talking to people which might potentially be business owners, business investors, and they are interested in supporting the development of such interdisciplinary projects in stem cells, to develop solutions in regenerative medicine and tissue engineering, and hopefully these solutions will become truly also by my startup and universities and companies I collaborate as also game changers. So that's about organoids, and the third one which I'd like to share with you, game changer in regenerative medicine, and this is truly delicious, is cultured meat. So wonderful I would say development of company in Netherlands, Meatable, later on in collaboration with DSM, a bigger company, startup Meatable, which developed stem cell based culture meat and actually sausage. And I will give you a link, fascinating study in terms of differentiation, because not only in terms of using induced pluripotent stem cells for differentiation, in differentiation which is important in this perspective, that stem cells have to be first multiplied to get the optimal amount of optimal numbers of stem cells for culture meat. So it's called meat. You could think about biomass. But first they have to be differentiated into post-mitotic muscle fibers by cell fusion. And usually this is a process which is associated with specific differentiation culture conditions, which initiate first differentiation stage to myotubes. So it's a myogenic differentiation. And for those which want to know more, you can always go into literature and look into stem cells, Google stem cells and culture meat, you will find more. So definitely stem cells are delicious in terms of it. And cultured meat is important because it's a meat substitute, important also not to increase, to actually look for alternatives, right? Not only plant-based burgers, which you already can find in McDonald's, but also other alternatives for cultured meat, alternatives to also reduce numbers of animals and living stock, which is nowadays actually quite expensive and quite polluting in terms of CO2. So, which we talk about climate change and so on. So there is a big pressure for that too. But there have been, of course, other companies. This Meatable is not the first company, but been already many companies by the end of actually 2020, about 60 early stage companies concentrating on cultured meat end products had been established worldwide. So you can imagine the scale of competition. And the companies are geographically distributed across 19 countries. So that's why it's very global process in terms of establishing product and also the value chain. But also 5 continents, with 37% in North America, 25% in Asia, and 21% in Europe. So more or less distribution is equal of these companies, but the competition is high, and money invested already in cultured meat companies from 2016 to 2020 was estimated to be over $460 million. So this means that there's huge interest, and there are companies like Memphis Meat, which raised nearly 200 million to take the lead, while Moza Meat has raised over 85 million. So there is a big competition, but I'm glad that Meatable is one of the companies which is startups, which is leading fascinating not only research but product, which they could now take up to scale up phase and be able to produce induced pluripotent stem cells derived cultured sausage in just a few days, and more you will find on their website. So I don't want to also tell more about this, but I'm really excited also because there have been already some, I know, possibilities to taste their cultured meat, actually cultured sausage derived from stem cells, of course differentiated iPS stem cells, and I'm really looking forward to also test it, and I'm going to also tell you more as soon as I will have occasion to make maybe such a small short and have occasion to taste this cultured sausage by Meatable. But we talk about induced pluripotent stem cells, but also these companies which I mentioned globally, they use actually mesenchymal stem cells for cultured meat end product. So different stem cells are used. That's important to actually here maybe point out. So I think that's something which I'd like to share today. And I am inviting you to follow this vlog and also to read all perspective, this great interdisciplinary perspective, which was written by Ulrich and colleagues, but also to look at Meetable website and explore these products. And I must say that these are very promising game changers, I believe. Also, this delicious stem cell derived, differentiated actually in cultured meat products. So I would like to thank you for attention. And next time I'm going to talk about the not delicious game changers in enrichment biology or regenerative medicine, but actually spicy game changers, the one which I not necessarily like or they're controversial. And this is going to include a lot of already game changers which were already published in quite influential newspapers, which are known worldwide. So please stay tuned in, because this is going to be also very important, I think, view on spicy game changers, the game changers which are controversial. So we're going to move from sweet spot, sweet game changers to the spicy ones in regenerative medicine. So take care and see you next time. Bye!